Hello, hello. Welcome to Zanette Knits live Q&A of the next pattern that will be released next week on the 7th of June, and it is a cardigan pattern. Thank you for joining. We've got a really nice summer outside, so yeah, if you're in my boat and you're here, thank you for taking the time. I can't wait to get back out there and do some stuff in my garden. But I thought I'd quickly just take a moment and talk you through the pattern, the ins and outs of this new cardigan that's coming out, and answer any questions that you might have. And why don't we jump into what I will cover today? Feel free to interrupt. I'll do my best to see the questions. I've got them on my computer as well, and answer right away. So just write the question in the comments. And in the meantime, I'll touch a little bit on the inspiration, on the gauge, on the yarns and alternatives, on the sizing, the construction, and maybe some modifications that I would want to see, but are not covered in the pattern. So first of all, it's probably good to start with what they look like. It looks like, I mean because I made two versions, and none of them are here. And even if they were here, I don't think I'd wear them because it's really, really warm. But I think if it was an evening and I was by the beach, or I was in some outdoor wedding and at the parties all night, I'd want to throw this on. It's certainly a statement piece because of the really wide trumpet sleeves and the picot edging. So it's suitable for a bit of a fancier occasion, or if you, do your house chores and that's also cool. Whatever works. The inspiration for this cardigan came from the practical need to just have a piece that I can throw on a dress, and that has a bit of something interesting about it, and it was the trumpet sleeve that I wanted to incorporate in a design, and this cardigan felt like a great place to use that. Sometimes the inspiration doesn't come from anything other than like, I need this, I need this and I want to make it. So I started this project last year. I think it was middle of summer. But by the time it would have been ready, the weather would have turned already. So I decided to postpone the release of this pattern to this spring. And while I was marinating in creation of the pattern, I decided that maybe I should make another one. So then first I started with this darker zebra one, the self-striping or variegated yarn from Mr. Bird Street. In UK, and then I decided to make a lighter one that shows off the interesting construction details that this cardigan has. I mean, you can't see it in the photo, and you can't really see it in mohair. I don't know what I was thinking, but a light mohair is what I had, and it's also good to show that you can use either fingering weight, sock yarn or whatever, and mohair as well works. As long as the gauge is right. So yeah, that's the inspiration. Gauge, I was gonna say what the gauge is, and the gauge for this cardigan is 26 stitches. Hello to Brazil. It's a long way away. 26 stitches and 34 rows, so quite a fine gauge, and it uses fingering weight yarn, so there's a little bit of knitting to do, but it's all plain stockinette. There's nothing super complicated, but it is by no means boring. So I used 3.25 millimeter or US size 3 needles for the main fabric. You need a lot thicker needles to create the how am I going to show it? The picot edging. Maybe you can see that here around the bottom as well, because I'm using 2 strands of yarn there. I used 4 millimeter or US 6 for that. And then you need tiny gauge needles to make the ties so they don't stretch out and become loose. So I use 2.75 millimeter needles or US 2 for the ties. So 3 needle sizes, but mostly it's done in 1 needle size. And the yarns, as I mentioned, anything that gets you a 26 by 34 stitches gauge and rows gauge is gonna be fine, as long as you like how it drapes, especially on the trumpet. I know that the fingering weight version for me is very drapey and flowy, and the mohair version is really airy and it holds the form a little bit more. But I like both of them. I could find occasions for either of them. So they don't even feel like they're the same pattern. And knitting them with the 2 different yarns also felt like a different project. So that's what can happen with the same pattern. So I used, as I said, Mr. Birdstreet Zebra 4-ply for the first version and Rowan Kid Silk Haze for the second version. But I think anything that's in your stash, depending on the size, of 3 to 4 skeins of fingering weight yarn could do. Of course, it depends on how long you'd like to make. It could be a short sleeve cardigan, in which case you don't need to knit the trumpets. I made a fairly cropped version. You could go even more cropped or longer because it's top down, and I guess that's a nice segue into the construction. The construction is an interesting one. So it starts at the top with casting and stitches on just for the back neck, and then to create a sloped shoulder we are increasing at the sides and create a nice line, shoulders, the fake shoulder seam that it becomes later after you pick up stitches for the front. So just the neck stitches, increasing to the full width of the back. Then we do a little bit of shaping of the armhole with some decreases, and then some increases for the armhole shaping, because it is a set-in sleeve construction. It's not a drop shoulder, so it has some shape. And once you're at the underarm, you then pick up the stitches along the side of the back for the fronts, and you knit straight until you need to start increasing the to create the V-neck, and decreasing a little bit again to shape the armhole that turns into increase later. And then at the underarm, here you leave some stitches for the ties, and all throughout you got this I-cord edge going on that turns into ties, and so it's really seamless and fine. There's no seaming necessary, it'll just become a tie. And then you continue in one piece. There is some waist shaping to take it in for the waist and then go back out a little bit to high hip height. And that's it. The body is done for as long as you can make it, as long as you like, and you finish it with a picot edging, and you pick up stitches for the sleeves. And the sleeve, that's the second interesting part. The first one was how the back increases are done and how they create a, maybe I can show you, this is the back view of the shoulder. So that's the back, and this is the front shoulder picked up along the back's edge, and then that's the sleeve. So the sleeve is shaped, the cap is shaped with short rows and some decreases, because when you first pick up the stitches around the armhole, you're going to have a lot of stitches and you don't want all of them to continue into the sleeve. So while you're shaping the cap with short rows, you're also making some decreases, which creates the cap shape. And once you've arrived at the, once you've done the cap, you just need to, what's the word? Work in the round even until about an elbow when the trumpet saga starts. And that's a really straightforward increase situation. And again, finishing with the picot edge, picot bind off. And the last thing is just to pick up the stitches that we left for ties and make little I-cord ties. And this one has quite a few techniques that are used, but everything has a video, a link to a video on either my YouTube channel or Instagram reel that I have managed to capture while I was working on it. So that includes the picot edging, setting up for the ties, and also, of course, Japanese short rows, my favorite short row. I suppose you can substitute any short row method, but Japanese for me are the most invisible, and I guess it depends on what color and how much stitch definition you have in the yarn. For mohair, it didn't really matter. I can't see the short row places where you can close the gaps because it's all covered with fuzz, and for the darker one I couldn't see them either because it's dark and busy. But if you have a light color yarn with great stitch definition, you'd probably want a really invisible short row method to hide the gaps. Sorry, to hide the places where you close the gaps on the turns. So yeah, I hope that all made sense. Haven't seen any questions, so I suppose all is clear. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I was going to say modifications. So what I would love to see, and I think it's fairly straightforward because throughout the pattern, throughout the whole garment, there's I-cord edging, and an I-cord edge is a fairly straightforward one to pick up stitches. So one could add a button band post completion and see what it looks like when you add buttons. That could be an interesting one. Another could be, instead of a trumpet sleeve, do a balloon sleeve and see what it would like with a little cuff at the very end that sort of takes it back in and makes a narrow circumference with all this bulk hanging there. That is an option I'm thinking about. And yeah, as I mentioned, you can have a very cropped version or a very long one, or even make it a short sleeve. One of the gotchas that turned out during testing, and I think that I have to say it out loud here, that I didn't have a chance to really make a note of in the pattern, is that pretty much almost everybody who tested this cardigan said that it came out larger than they had planned or that they wanted to, and if they were gonna do it again, they would go a size smaller. I am not entirely sure why that is. My guess is that the weight of the sleeves really is pulling down and stretching the already quite open neck, and that makes it feel like it's not on the body, and it's sort of not slipping off because you have a tie, but it's causing a more roomier effect. So my suggestion would be to go a size smaller than you normally would, and that should work just fine, because it is supposed to be with a little bit of positive ease, but I think it looks also really good if you have actually negative ease around, almost negative ease around the chest. So yeah, that's one thing to note. And other than that, oh, I completely skipped the size part and how many sizes we've got. So we've got 8 sizes, and the finished chest circumference runs from 81.5 centimeters, that is 32.5 inches, all the way to 152.5 centimeters, that is 61 inches. And yeah, across 8 sizes with 10, roughly 10 centimeter increments. So there should be something that fits majority of people. And my other suggestion is probably well, it depends on what you're going for, to probably pick a lighter color, solid color, or stripes, but lighter, so that you can really see all the shaping that is done for the armhole and the shoulder, because it's quite an unusual construction, and it's all seamless, and you probably want to show it off. And because it's unusual construction and seamless, it will make this project an exciting one to work on. It's not just endless stockinette. There's a bit of focus required, especially around the sleeves. But yeah, it's one for ambitious knitters who wanna maybe practice or learn some new techniques. And yeah, it's been great telling you about this cardigan that's coming out on Wednesday, on the 7th of June. So if you're not a newsletter subscriber yet, go ahead and subscribe through our website. You will be the first one to get an email with a discount code that's bigger for subscribers, and links to everywhere you can download this pattern from. And thanks so much to all the test knitters who helped and contributed, and thanks to the photographers, models, and my tech editor, and all the awesome helpers that made this come alive. It's been, again, a long one in the making since last summer, and I'm really happy that I can finally share this with you. And thanks so much.